On a first alert for parents and teens. Aisha's at the First Alert Safety Desk. Good morning.
Good morning, Emerson. So we're talking about teens and new research that talks about advertising that can influence a greater risk of underage drinking. So this new study says more than half of U.S. teens report seeing or hearing ads for alcohol leading to that greater risk. The CDC says excessive alcohol use causes about 4,000 deaths every year among those below the age of 21. Experts, doctors, they all say young people who drink alcohol are more likely to have negative health effects. They're also less safe in those situations. 1 in 10 high school students reported riding with a driver who had been drinking alcohol. It's a problem made worse, according to this research, it's made worse by advertising. And the new study found over half of teens saw commercials for alcohol while watching TV, streaming videos, going to the movies, or just browsing the internet. The chance of seeing these ads increased by 20% for each year they get older. The study also found Hispanic teens had a 60% greater chance of being exposed to alcohol ads compared to other people. Safety officials this morning just want to remind you to have those open conversations with your teen about underage drinking and those repercussions and ways to stay safe. Experts say the more alcohol teens are exposed to, the more likely they are to start underage drinking. The report also calls for improved alcohol policies, other community strategies. So again, having those conversations really important, staying connected with them and teaching them how to handle risky situations, Emerson.